So I'll let Biz introduce Elliot.
Yes, Elliot, welcome. And everybody, I'm excited for you to get to meet Elliot. We have been working with him in different capacities for, it's the 7 years since Mela has been founded. He was one of our first folks that helped us make that first Capital Day that we had 7 years ago so successful. And we're excited to be working with him again this year. Elliot is the principal at Cornerstone Government Affairs Jackson office. But Cornerstone has an office, I think across the whole country. I think you have offices in almost every state and certainly in DC. Elliot has connections with legislators. He advocates for all sorts of issues and budget areas. Basically, he is, if you want to know about legislation or what's going on at the Capitol, Elliot's the guy you want to talk to. He also has served as an attorney, assistant attorney general, and a legislative liaison for Mississippi Attorney General Jim Hood. And he serves on several boards in the Jackson area in the state. And so we're really excited to have Elliot with us and for his expertise. Elliot, we're excited for you to tell us what's going on at the legislature and help us really. The folks here, just so that you know, on this call, all 20 of these folks are folks who have been to a Capitol Day before or they've, built a relationship with their legislator. These are sort of our more experienced folks. So we really hope that you can give them kind of pull back the curtain and tell us what's going on up there.
Perfect. Well, thank you and afternoon, everyone. Elliott Flaggs. Proud to be Mella's lobbyist for 7 years. Time flies. So what I want to do is just kind of jump straight into just a quick summary of what's going on at the Capitol with some of our priority issues slash legislation. And then more so answer any questions that you may have. So before I start, I will say that I'm far from an expert, but I appreciate the kind words. I just work really hard. So right now, session started January 6th. It's usually the first Tuesday of the month, unless it's the new year. And I will say, in my 13 years of lobbying, this session by far has started the fastest because typically with the legislative deadline calendar, which is basically our Bible during session, everything lives or dies by the legislative deadline schedule. Usually the first 2 weeks are very slow. But if you've been keeping up with the news the last few weeks, Governor Hoseman started day one, bringing out education and PERS, the public employee retirement system bills, out of committee and taking them up the next day on the floor. And then a few days later, you also had the House bring up House Bill 2 out of committee and debating it on the floor, which is your comprehensive charter school K through 12 omnibus bill. So with that 2 week window that we typically get to like get grounded, get bills introduced, like we hit the ground running. And I say we lobbyists and legislators hit the ground running pretty quick. Um, some of the hot topic items right now, of course, I've mentioned PERS and education. You're gonna have some tax issues, and one of the biggest topics has been with the around $250 million that the state will get over the next 5 years, the Rural Transformation Grant Program. It's right now we're trying to see if they're going to drop legislation to try to control the money, or if they won't drop legislation and let the governor dictate where that money goes. And that's mostly for like our rural hospitals and access to care issues. So, with that being said, if there are no questions, I will kind of give you a lay of the land with some of the bills that we're watching. But I do want to denote that what I believe is that with the Senate and the House being so far apart on their education issues, particularly charter schools and K through 12 issues, the omnibus education bill includes education student accounts, which quote unquote vouchers. It's not even a partisan issue. There are several Republicans that do not support House Bill 2 in its current form, and the votes are not there in the Senate. So what's interesting is how will Speaker Jason White and Lieutenant Governor Hoseman negotiate, and whether some type of education bill will actually pass, and if one is not passed, what will be the collateral damage? And what I mean by that is if they don't align on a bill, there could be other unrelated bills that die as a result of them not being able to negotiate. It's politics. It happens every year. This is nothing atypical. It's very common. And as we say at the Capitol, it's politics as usual. Um, so I want to talk about three, four specific bills. Specifically on the Senate side, Senator Nicole Boyd, obviously she's one of our champions. If you're familiar, you can look at Senate Bill 2867. That bill is where an employer that provides a child care stipend can receive an income tax credit up to 3,500 per child. That's in Senate Finance. And then you also have Senate Bill 2871, which is again another tax credit for any contribution to like a preschool or pre-kindergarten program. And I know that the overall amount, the cumulative amount that can be spent on that tax credit is $1 million. And so that bill is also in finance. Anything tax related will go to finance or ways and means in the House. And then you have 2371, which is a Senate bill that is seeking for all child care licensing requirements to put it all under the Department of Human Services. Right now, there's a portion that the Department of Health handles, and I'm sure you all know this, and a portion that DHS handles. So they're trying to decrease the bureaucracy and making it easier for you all to open up centers. I'll jump down to SNAP legislation and diaper sales tax legislation. There are a number of SNAP bills. If you're following Mela's priority list, there's a list of about 80, 90 bills, which is a lot, but several of them touch SNAP. And for the diaper legislation, I believe Nicole Boyd has one. I think there's an equivalent on the House side, but that'll basically eliminate sales tax for adult and baby diapers. And then there are some other bills that add along other items. We're following that pretty closely. Again, those bills are in Ways and Means and Finance because they are a tax issue. This is probably more information than you want to know, but all tax and revenue bills are three-fifths bills. So instead of it being a simple majority vote, you have to have three-fifths vote, which means that if all the Republicans are not aligned with the supermajority that they have in the chambers, um, it would have to have Democratic support. But if you also look at the bills, there are several Democrats that have sponsored these bills. Did anybody have any questions about any particular bill? Again, there are a number of these bills, so asking about one, you're really asking about all of them. But if there are no questions, I'll move on to what particular legislators and committees are like most pertinent to Mela's issues. And I'll say in the House, individually, obviously Speaker White, who controls legislation that comes through the House. You have Representative Reed, who's chair of appropriations, and then you also have Representative Carl Oliver. He handles the education appropriation bills. You have Representative Lamar. He's chairman of Ways and Means. You have Representative Rob Robertson, he's chair of education, and Representative Jansen Owen, McCarty, Creekmore, and Zuber. Creekmore is probably one of the more important ones too. Sam Creekmore out of New Albany, because he's public health. So I think overwhelming majority of our bills are in public health. Um, and so on the Senate side, you have Senator Briggs Hobson, who chairs appropriation, Senator Harkins, who has finance. So those tax credit bills are coming through his committee. Senator Nicole Boyd, obviously, she's a supporter and a champion for most of our issues. Senator Wiggins, he was very instrumental in our early learning collaboratives. What was that, 2013, I believe? So he's been a champion for the last, close to 15 years. You have Senator Dennis DeBar, who chairs education. Um, and so I'll add Senator McCon because he's government structure. Um, for his committee, you're looking at, or he will be considering the consolidation bill, the child care licensure bills. That likely will be coming through his committee. So, what are the biggest barriers right now to child care or just Mela's priority issues? Um, Overall, I would say that most of our issues are nonpartisan, which means we have really good support on both sides. Um, we have a speaker and lieutenant governor that believes in these priorities, but of course, politics It's always a part of the process. And so next Tuesday is our first committee deadline. And so we'll really know what bills will be prioritized by next Tuesday because if a bill is not brought up in committee by next Tuesday, then it's basically dead. But not dead, dead because anything can happen for the rest of the session. It's too much to go into. But no bill's technically dead, dead until they adjourn, sign, and die. Um, so two things are going on right now. Obviously, we all know the ice storm that hit earlier this week. The House and Senate lost about a day and a half, where they would have been having committee meetings earlier this week. So they are behind on, technically, they're behind on schedule. And then also our House Speaker, his father passed away. That funeral is taking place right now in Kosciuszko. So the entire House is out this morning, and they're not coming in until 2. So basically, the House has lost almost another full day of potential committee meetings. So with that being said, my expectation is there are about 3,000 bills out there right now. There are going to be a significant portion, I would guess. My guess would be 75% to 80% of those bills likely won't make it past Tuesday's deadline. Um, and then also, I mentioned this earlier, the negotiation of the omnibus education issue, which includes not only charter school like vouchers, it has teacher pay raises in there. It has where retired teachers can come back and teach for a certain amount. And what else is in that bill? There's such portability where if, say, for instance, if my child is in JPS, I can move her into Madison County Public Schools if they accept. The Senate has passed that bill, and it's also in the omnibus bill that is headed to the Senate. And I know I'm going through a lot of legislative process vernacular, um, but depending on what happens with that, again, there could be collateral damage. Um, Prayerfully and hopefully, none of our bills will be part of this collateral damage. But with our Capital Day, I think it's very important. And I'm helping with this. We're gonna have we're gonna try to get the Lieutenant Governor down to visit. We're gonna get try to get House Speaker Jason White, some of our chairs. And so as you're there, feel free to let them know what pressing issues you have, what your priorities are. I'm sure that we'll have handouts for them. But your voice is important. The capital is yours. Your advocacy is important. And so with that, be sure to use your social media, be sure to use your relationships, be sure to be in touch with your local legislators. I'm not sure where everybody is from. I haven't looked in the chat room yet. But stay in touch with your local representative and senator. Their voices matter, their votes matter. With that being said, I'll stop here with business permission and answer questions because I want to make sure that I'm more so providing helpful information for next Thursday, or if there's any particular bill that you have a question about.
Thanks, Elliot. I'm gonna let folks ask questions here, but I want to ask a personal one question. What is something that in thinking about we have a couple of bills we're really watching and we really want to see make it out of committee.
Mhm.
Um, if that is what if we want that to happen, what should we be doing to sort of push those through and get those through committee?
Text your legislators, call your legislators.
All
Again,
legislators or some in particular?
well, you have to look at the bill and see what committee it's in, and whatever committee that is, that's the chairman that you would want to contact. But also look at the committee, and all this information is on the Mississippi Legislative website. For instance, if it's in public health on the House side, Sam Creekmore is the chair. But if you don't know him or you don't have a contact with him, then you can look at who all is on the Public Health Committee, and it's highly likely one of your representatives in your area is probably on not education, on public health because it's one of the largest committees. Again, every vote counts. But the most important thing right now is for that bill to come out of committee, and that first deadline is next Tuesday. So this communication needs to happen before Capitol Day. But I'll emphasize you all have us as a firm, Cornerstone, as your boots on the ground at the Capitol. These discussions are taking place right now, but all of your voices matter.
Thank you. Okay, folks, I know you've got some questions, and there might be some in the chat too. Let's see. Kentrell Keys has asked, can they vote to extend the deadline? Kentrell, do you mean the deadline for committee?
Yes, he was saying the deadline for Tuesday, since they've had all the weather and then the funeral, can they vote to extend the deadline?
They would have to suspend the rules, each chamber, which requires unanimous vote. It rarely happens. It rarely happens. I doubt it. And to be honest with you, um, this is me speaking, and this is just my opinion. I think House leadership and Senate leadership don't mind keeping it Tuesday uh, to kill bills that they don't want in the first place. Does that make sense? So I seriously doubt they moved the deadline, but they could.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Elliot, this is
Hmm.
Spencer.
Yes.
So,
Hey,
so
Spence.
if we have on this, hey, how you doing? On the legislative tracker, if we have about 80, it wouldn't be uncommon for that to drop to 15 or 20. You said based on the 75 to 80% kind of being dead.
Correct. Could be less than that, but a significant portion, yes. I would say to be safe, 75% of that list. And then also, again, this is just politics as usual. If you look at the bill and you look at the author or the sponsor, and it's a Democrat, we have a supermajority Republican House and Senate. Most bills sponsored by Democrats don't they have a very short shelf life. So.
Gotcha.
Uh,
All right.
but let me also note that appropriation bills have not dropped yet. So if you look at Department of Human Services, their appropriation bill, Department of Education, Department of Health, those bills won't drop for another 2, 3 weeks. So, and most appropriation bills are handled conference weekend, which is at the very end of session. So we won't have numbers until the end of March. Budget numbers, final budget numbers. I'm sorry.
And there's oh
Go ahead, April.
Hey, April.
hey you all, I'm April with Mela, and I just want to make sure we looked at Leslie's question. Leslie asked which bill is this, and I can't remember at what point in your presentation you were talking about. So Leslie, you can come off mute so that we can get your answer.
Sure, yeah. I was talking when Elliot, it's when you were discussing teachers being able to come out of retirement, and then I think there was something else, but it was in education.
Yeah, so
That's
House
it.
Bill 2
House Bill
would
2.
have that
Okay.
information. On the Senate side, there are three separate bills. I
Okay.
would need to look at them. I don't have the numbers before me right now, but there
Okay.
are the Senate didn't do an omnibus bill. I can get those numbers and email them to
Okay.
Biz, email them to you all.
Okay. So is it wrapped up with the one that's going over school choice or charter school and the
Yeah.
quote unquote
So
voucher?
yes, so
Okay.
those three Senate bills are now in the House, and
Yeah.
House Bill 2 is now in the Senate.
Got it.
But the
Okay.
next deadlines aren't until 3, 4 weeks from now. So that's where we'll really have a good idea on whether they plan to negotiate or not, or whether all the bills die.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
I
way
know
over
that
my
one.
pay grade, way over my pay grade.
Way. Yeah, I get. I'm just watching that one pretty closely.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And once I plan to stay on the call, so once we transition to the next phase, um, I'll get those bills and put them in the chat, the bill numbers, the Senate bills.
And we have one more question from Roberta. She asks, what is the process to kill bills?
We live and die by the legislative deadline calendar. And so basically, if a bill doesn't make it past that deadline, it dies. A bill can come out of committee and a chairman decides not to bring it up on the House floor, so it dies on the calendar. A bill can make it all the way to conference weekend, which is, say, for instance, House Bill 2. Once it gets to conference, it means that the House will appoint three conferees, the Senate will appoint three conferees. They'll come together at the end of March and try to negotiate a final bill to send back to the chambers to vote for and send to the governor. But a bill can die if they can't come to an agreement, and no conference report is filed, and technically the bill dies. So there are a multitude of ways for a bill to die. And then a bill, lastly, can die with it not receiving the 3/5 vote for the tax bills or a majority vote for general bills. Or a committee could vote it down. So again, I don't want to go through all the ways, but there's a long list of ways that a bill can die or can be killed.
Thanks, Elliot. Let me ask you a question, one more specific question. So many of our bills that we're watching, specifically the diaper tax bills, went to Ways and Means or Finance.
Correct.
Given that those aren't necessarily an appropriation bill, but they're money bills, if they aren't discussed now, can they come up in a later committee meeting or no? We don't know.
Well, appropriation and revenue bills, tax bills have a later deadline, which is, I think it's coming up maybe that third week or that fourth week in February. So we still have several more weeks. So next Tuesday's deadline will not impact appropriation and revenue bills. In fact, appropriation bills haven't even dropped or been introduced yet. Um, but note that for tax bills, that's typically Ways and Means or Finance on the Senate. That's money coming into the state, and all of your appropriation bills is the state spending money. So money out is appropriations. Money coming into the state is usually tax revenue, which is Finance, Ways and Means. That's the easiest way to think about it.
Thank you.
So did I confuse anybody? Appropriations is spending out. Tax and revenue is money coming in.
But so I guess my question is, do the tax and revenue, they have they have this deadline, not the
No,
later deadline.
they have a later deadline.
So
Appropriation,
money has a later deadline.
money has a later deadline. That's the easiest way to think about it.